But you provide some great insights, which is really good. And you know, why I wanted to get you on is because like I know what's happening with me. I'm getting drawn to doing more of this podcast thing because it's exciting. It's something new. It's entertainment. I get to talk to people rather than look at spreadsheets all day. How do you find the podcast more exciting than running the business now, or where does your attention go?
I prefer the spreadsheets, mate. I've got to be honest. Actually,
you've been doing it for a long time.
I don't want to be sort of cruel to the guests or anything like that. I do have a lot of fun. It's really just, I guess it's a balancing act. And when I'm busy in the business, which is how I get paid, I don't make a cent out of the podcast. In fact, it loses money. I think some people are surprised by that. And we don't have any paid positions or sponsors, and I'm not really interested in getting any. It's just when you're busy with work and you know that you have a podcast interview lined up, and I like to pay respect to the guests by doing research and asking them questions to get the best out of them, which takes time to do properly. When I'm flat out with a deadline or something and I realize I've got to do that before I can leave, that's where it sort of takes a little bit of the fun out of it. But once I'm chatting to someone, especially someone that I can have a good chat with and a good bit of banter with, and you'd be a good example. We've never actually met in person. It'll happen eventually, but we've already got some good rapport. Like, it's easy to have a conversation. Other times, you know, people, it's a bit like drawing blood from a stone. That makes it a little bit trickier, but I still have fun. But I started the business with my business partner, Marty, really because I wanted to sort of drink Shiraz and do asset registers on an Excel sheet until the early hours. Now, the only thing that I do is drink Shiraz. I don't really do that many depreciation schedules anymore. And really, like, being sort of a natural introvert, most of my job now is on the extrovert side of things. It's doing interviews, it's doing videos, you know, it's doing media and stuff like that, and business development. So yeah, it's funny what your job ends up being from what you sort of plan it to be.
Well, as the business owner, you are responsible for trying to think outside the box to try and drive revenue if it happens. So have you found this podcast has helped you become more of an extrovert?
I think, like, before I started, I had to get out of that sort of introvert style. It's not an act, but I think it's not my natural personality. So when I'm at home, I tend to be very quiet and keep to myself. I don't sort of seek company on the weekends and that sort of stuff. It's just, you know, hanging out with my little family. That's more than enough for me. But yeah, before the podcast, I had to learn how to present to people, how to pitch the business, you know, done a couple of TV spots and things like that. And you've really sort of got to try and be engaging, especially when you're talking about something as boring as tax legislation. So you've got to try and have a little bit of fun and you know, have a bit of a joke at yourself. So the podcast, I think it's still refining the skills. And I get to the point now where sometimes people say, you know, like, oh, you know, how do you do that on camera? Like, it must just be natural. It must just be your personality. And it's not necessarily the case. I think it's a learned skill to be able to answer questions and hopefully be somewhat entertaining.
Yeah, 100%. You pick it up. Practice makes perfect, right, Mike?
Absolutely. What do you need? 10,000 hours and you can win at anything.
That's it. Who said that? And I love that book, The Outsiders.